Fight fans, welcome to the PBC podcast, brought to you by Premier Boxing Champions with your host, Kenneth Buhari and Michael Rosenthal.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the PBC podcast. Episode number 50, actually. Kind of wild, Mike, that we...
2 more weeks, that's a year.
How we made it, yeah. We've come pretty far. By the way, I am Kenneth Buhari here with USA Today Boxing Junkie editor Michael Rosenthal. We hope you guys are all staying safe out there, and we've got a great show for you guys today. The bronze bomber, Deontay Wilder, will be joining us. We've got former super middleweight champion Anthony Dirrell in the building as well. Plus a great topic of the week to mull over. But let's take a look at some recent boxing news first. I think a lot of you guys saw the video from last week of Floyd Money Mayweather training his 14-year-old nephew. They were working the pads in the ring, and Mayweather said, and I quote, "As many of you know, I've had incredible trainers, which included my dad and uncle. Due to the recent passing of my Uncle Roger, I felt inspired to help those around me the same way they have been there for me throughout my boxing career. In a time where we must distance ourselves from others, it has allowed me to reflect on how I want to make a difference in people's lives and help them achieve their goals. A true trainer wants the best out of their fighter and pushes them to the best of their abilities. I want to leave an impression on those around me and allow them to see their potential. I am new at training, and so far I've been working with people with no boxing experience. Therefore, we are growing together. But I promise you, I will be one of the best trainers in the world." Well, he certainly was one of the greatest fighters in the world. But Mike, why is it that we don't see too many great fighters becoming trainers, let alone great trainers?
Actually, I think that's true across all sports. I did a little bit of research. I mean, I had some names in mind, but guys like Ted Williams, who was like maybe the greatest hitter who ever lived in baseball, wasn't a very good manager. Wayne Gretzky, generally considered the best hockey player of all time, was not a great coach. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you can teach it. So the question in this case is, can he teach it? My gut tells me that yes, he can. We really have no idea at this point how we'll do in the long run, so stay tuned, that kind of thing. But I think he'd make a good trainer. Mayweather has, I guess, special God-given gifts, like once in a generation, maybe once in 2 generations. He also was one of the hardest working boxers from everything I've ever heard. So that's the combination of things that made him as great as he was. So the work ethic is there. So I know even as a trainer, I'm certain that he would work very hard. He's another one of those guys who's been in the gym since he could walk, basically. His dad was a fighter, his uncle was a fighter. He was just, boxing's been a part of his life, his whole life. So obviously he knows the ins and outs of this sport as well as anyone. I think he'd work hard to convey that knowledge, to whatever students he ends up working with. He also seems to have the right attitude. I was just thinking about what you just said, and the second to last thing he said is that he's new to this. He's not like taking a really arrogant attitude like some people might expect. He's like, okay, sure. I'm going to do this, and we'll see. But he has confidence at the same time. He said he's going to be one of the greatest trainers in the world. I just happen to believe him. And finally, I think he's genuinely inspired by the passing of his uncle. I think what he said is genuine. I think he really feels that way. And he's the kind of guy, I think, when he starts something, he sticks with it. So I think he's going to end up being a very good trainer.
Yeah, those last 2 things you mentioned are part of the reasons why I think he's capable of being a good trainer. One, I do believe that he's inspired, and 2, his work ethic. But I think it comes down to the ego part and being able to balance that. It sounds, based on what he says, that he will be one in saying that he has no boxing experience, so he's going to be learning with someone, and then also saying I'll be one of the best trainers in the world or best trainers ever or what have you. And that's kind of the attitude he's going to have to take. It's interesting. I remember Zuma Nelson, the great champion of the 80s and the 90s, Hall of Famer. He once told me that he tried training fighters, but they didn't listen. They had a different work ethic and so forth. And one of the fighters he initially trained actually was Kofi Jantua, who went on to have a pretty decent career as a super welterweight, which in a way led me to wonder if maybe Nelson his ego was sort of getting in the way when he was training the guys, or whether he set a pretty high standard for his fighters and that one that perhaps they couldn't meet. Although I'll say this much, you know, it's not a bad thing if your trainer, you know, is setting that high a standard. But here's why, the main reason why I think Floyd can do it, aside from the reasons that we mentioned, is his late uncle Roger. He was one of those rare examples of a world champion, a two-time world champion, who had a successful career as a trainer. Typically, you get journeymen or contenders, or guys who had good amateur careers, or guys who didn't have a career who turned out to be great trainers. But it's rare that you get a champion that turns out to be a great trainer, and his uncle Roger was a champion who was able to do that. So I think if Floyd can emulate him, Mike, I think then he's got a great chance of becoming the coach that he wants to be.
Yeah, I think you brought up a really good point. Also, is you don't know how he's going to react when the guy he's working with doesn't work as hard as he did.
Right.
You know, he might just think to himself, "WTF? You know, this isn't how it's supposed to be." And who knows how he's going to handle that? I guess part of being a coach is being a motivator. I think of guys like Angelo Dundee and Emmanuel Stewart, guys are really good at motivating guys. Can Mayweather be that guy? I don't know. And I don't know if you have to be that guy if you're a really good nuts and bolts kind of guy. So these are questions that'll be answered along the way.
Yeah, certainly. And I do think, though, that does play a factor. You could be a nuts and bolts kind of guy, but you have to find ways to inspire the people that you work with. But we shall see. I mean, other than this Mayweather news, it's been fairly slow news-wise. I've been getting my fix of boxing content on YouTube pretty much. By the way, shout out to Champside. He's always got great stuff on his YouTube channel. You guys should definitely check out his work. And PBC has been pumping out some really good stuff as well, if we may say so ourselves. For those who haven't checked it out, last week's At Home series, which was on Facebook Live, we saw the Charlo brothers on separate episodes, and that was an experience. Those guys may be twins, but they're each one of a kind. I also rewatched last week's Time Out with Ray Flores on PBC's IG page. He had undefeated unified welterweight champion Errol Spence Jr. as the guest. It's been a long time since we heard from Spence, and he looked and sounded great. It sounded like after suffering that serious single car accident last October, he's not taking anything for granted, Mike, and he's itching to silence the doubters.
Yeah, we're itching to see him try to do it.
Right.
Of course, we'd like to see anybody fight at this point, but yeah, he's the man. He did sound like he learned a lesson. Maybe you need something. Nobody needs something like that. But I think when somebody experiences something like that, I think it has to change your perspective on life in general. Yeah.
Sure, I completely agree. And you know, it's easy to forget how good this guy is. And I was watching PBC replay on YouTube last Saturday night. They showed the entire Spence versus Sean Porter Fox pay-per-view card, and I stand by this, Mike. Errol Spence at his best, he just might be the best fighter in the world.
Yeah.
He's got a ways to go in terms of accomplishments, and you know, for me, a fighter's resume, I feel, is the primary determinant factor in as far as where he's ranked. I'm not saying he's got a pretty good one as it stands, but when you talk about head to head, I mean, he outboxed the boxer Mikey Garcia, and then he outfought the fighter in Sean Porter, and the manner in which he defeated both tells me that he's just going to be very, very hard to beat. Now, the WBC has mandated he fight Danny Garcia next. I mean, that's a pretty tough fight to come back from, especially, you know, given the layoff, but the fight fan in me wants to see it anyway.
Yeah, I think I would recommend that all top fighters take an interim fight after something like this, although it depends on their schedule. I mean, some guys probably won't be out of the ring much more than 6 months, and that would be kind of normal for them. I think it depends on their schedule. He will have been out for quite a while. You know, you made me think of something just now. Like you said that he boxed with Garcia and he outboxed him to win. You said he brawled with Porter and outbrawled him to win. I'm not sure that's a good strategy long term going forward. Just fight your opponent's fights. I think he might be wiser, might be smarter to fight his own fights going forward. He doesn't need to prove anything like that.
Right, I agree with you. I think what that shows, though, is he can fight any fight that he wants to. So, but and of course he's imposed his will against several opponents and fought the way he's wanted. But just showing that versatile and complete skill set is impressive to me. And like you, I'm ready for any kind of boxing at this point. Luckily, PBC replay on YouTube this Saturday night. We've got Leo Santa Cruz versus Abner Mares, the rematch, which was an excellent fight. I'm looking forward to that because I'm about this close to rewatching old Butterbean fights. So, that's when you know you're a fanatic.
You know what? Butterbean was fun.
He was.
I got to know him a little bit too. He's an incredibly nice guy and a smart guy too. He was a really smart guy. He's real good at marketing himself. Really,
he had a
really
good run.
Pleasure to be around him. And he was a beast in there.
Yeah, he was. He was a beast at Knockout Kings, the video game too. I used to love playing as him. Good times. Maybe I'll rewatch his fights anyway, just for good times' sake. But anyway, it's time to get the show really started, beginning with our first guest, two-time super middleweight champion, Anthony Dirrell. Anthony, my first question to you is, what is the situation in Michigan right now, and how are you and your family doing?
It's bad, and Genesee County is not as bad as Detroit or Southfield or something like that, but we got cases, and that's the sad thing. But we're dealing with it. Like everyone in the country is dealing with it, staying indoors. I'm visiting my grandfather right now. We got a curfew of 9:00. I think everything that they're doing is right, because the cases is going down. We don't have as many. That's even in New York. If you're looking at the news, the cases is going down. This keep your distance thing is it's a great thing, especially for this. I think China has already closed their last hospital on it, so they succeeded in defeating it. And I know the U.S., as powerful as we can succeed if people do the right thing.
Right. Now, you do a lot of work in your community. Are there any initiatives now that you're a part of regarding this latest pandemic?
Well, I'm trying to get together to raise money, for something online. I reached out to a few people. I don't know who we have yet, so I don't want to, say, but, just trying to raise money and aware of people on this and still give people clean water. They tell us to wash our hands. They tell us to, stay social distance, but we can't wash our hands with dirty water. So, that's a situation that has to be resolved still. And I think they're not even fixing pipes because of it. So we still have to bring awareness to the water situation and getting it done, getting the pipes done. They've been since April 14, 2014 that we had bad water. And I think that's long enough for any city, any state in America to go through without clean water.
Anthony, what kind of progress have they made with that project?
With the water situation?
With the water situation, yeah. I mean, have they made any progress?
Yeah, they made progress. I think 80% of the pipes are done. But you still have the wonder in your mind is what pipes are done. Is it the minority pipes are done, or is it not the minority pipes? And that's who we got to look out for, because the other people are can afford to get water. Or we all need good water. I'm not saying one person is better than another, but when you have a family of 5 kids and they can't drink water and they can't go out and buy water, then what do? You have to sit back and look at all the options and go from there. I think, like I say, we still need to bring awareness up to this situation because it's still an ongoing thing. I think people don't realize that it's still going. I think people think that it's fixed. It's not, and that's the sad thing.
Yeah, that is sad. Anthony, you obviously have a passion to give back, to work with your community. Where does that come from?
Just people. I've seen people else doing it. I've seen a guy named Mateen Cleaves, former NBA star, Morris Peterson, Charlie Bell. All these people, Jeff Greer. All these people give back. And, when you see that as a kid, you intend to do the same thing. And that's what it's about. It's about a domino effect, especially on the younger generation. they see you doing it and they want to help also. So you do that, and it can keep evolving down the line.
Great. Yeah, you could give back in another way too. Have you considered becoming a trainer when it's time to walk away as a fighter?
I don't know yet. I'm not for sure. I say I'll just right now stick to commentating.
Okay.
But boxing. Most people don't understand what goes into boxing. Trainers have a hard job also. They're just not there to tell you what to do and you say no or something, but they have a hard job too because they're away from their family. They have to tell you to do something. It's up to you to do it or not. And if you don't do it, they get frustrated. It's very stressful. So am I prepared to go through something like that? I'm not for sure yet. I think I'll just weigh my options and rest up and take a few years to enjoy my family. Well, this time right now I'm enjoying my family, but and then I'll have a decision on whether I want to train or commentate or do both. I mean, I don't see the harm in doing both. I think Emmanuel Stewart did it great.
That's right. Yeah, he did a great job with that, and he was from Michigan, so.
Yeah, he was from Michigan. Crunk.
That's right. Now, speaking of training, who are some of the young fighters today that have caught your eye from Michigan or anywhere else, really?
Devin Haney for sure. You got my cousin, Leon Lawson, the third. You got Ryan. Clarissa Shields would only have 11 fights with three division weight champion. I mean, it's a lot of young fighters out here. That's good. And you even got Prime Time from New York. I mean, I don't think you can really leave him out. He's an excellent fighter, especially when he put his foot down and goes at it. But like I say, man, it's a lot of young talent out here that's ready to compete for a championship, and I think it's a good thing for boxing, just to bring boxing back into the limelight more than what it is.
Yeah. Now you last fought.
I really miss boxing. Like, I don't know if it's me watching fights or me training. Like, since this pandemic, like, I really, you sit back and you think about things that you can't do, and boxing is one of them.
Have you been able to train at all?
Yeah, so I got a gym. I built a basketball gym. I got a workout area in there, punching bag. So I got all that, and I use it. So I am staying active. I think anybody who has the means or the resources to stay active, especially in this game that we're in, you do it because this is your job at the end of the day. And you got to do your job to the fullest. You can't let somebody else get ahead.
We last saw you in September when you lost to David Benavidez. You were doing pretty well in that fight until you suffered that cut over your eye. With that in mind, do you want a rematch versus Benavidez?
I want a rematch. I don't think he'll give it to me.
Why not?
I don't think because I was beating him. Truthfully, I was beating him. He couldn't do the things to me what he did to other fighters, and I think it was because of my experience. Is the guy good? Yeah, he's a good fighter. Everybody knows that. I mean, but I think I was beating him until that cut. But we will never know. I mean, the cut happens. You take the wins with the losses, and hopefully I can get another shot before I go out and show the world that I am a true champion.
It's obvious that you still have that fire. When you suffer a loss like that, a disappointment like that, does that just add to your motivation?
Oh, it's not disappointing. I got cut. Things happen. I was winning a fight. It's a loss. Yes, you still go back to the drawing board. I couldn't do nothing about a cut. Cut especially from a jab. You kind of go back and reassess. What could you have done? but I'm not disappointed in my performance. I think I performed very well up to the cut. I think I still had a lot to give. I was just getting started. I think I was wearing him down a little bit. I think he started to slow down. And like I say, we will never know what will happen if the fight would have won 12 rounds or less without the cut. But we can solve that by doing a rematch. And then I heard that Avni Yildirim had the go ahead thing. Like, I just didn't understand that either. And I questioned the WBC on it, because I beat him and he still was number one for the title again right after I beat him. And then when I lost to David Benavidez, I went down to 7. Like, I just never understood that. How was he in front of me and I just beat him without him having another fight? Like, I never understood that. So, what I'm saying? We got to do some reassessing and see where everything goes.
Now, you mentioned the cut, and you were doing pretty well up until that cut opened up. It's been an issue in your past few fights. Is that something you're just going to have to deal with? Is there any way you can rectify that going forward?
Move my head a little bit more. I'm a fighter. I like to fight. I mean, everybody that sees my fight knows that. I think I can take a punch pretty well. Or is it just getting the order of my skin or getting a little looser? I don't know. But, just move my head a little more and box, do what I did the first half of that fight. And, I can avoid being cut as I did. But, you can't stop that with a jab. I mean, it's boxing. You're going to get hit. You don't know what punch is going to cut you. So you just take it. You take it how it comes.
Now, you mentioned before also working as a Fox Sports boxing analyst for PBC shows. Is that something you enjoy doing?
Oh, I love it. I think it's it's good for boxing, for ex-fighters to get in there and talk about boxing, because they know what's going on. They know what they need to do to win or something like that. I love it. It's an honor for Fox to even call me and tell me that, they have a show for me to do or something like that. And I get a lot of compliments of me, calling the fight. So, I think I can turn this into a career also.
No,
it's not just boxing. If I have the opportunity to do other things, I think I can, because I'm a sports guy. So I know a lot about all sports, and we can just go from there.
Now, what's the hardest part about doing it for boxing? I mean, you're being outside of the ring and commentating on the fights instead of being inside the ring and actually participating.
It's just the hardest thing about commentating is if you have two friends in there and they're fighting, you can't be biased. You have to call the fight as it goes. You can't be one-sided. You have to call the fight how it goes, and you have to say what needs to be said. So, and that's the main thing. You got to put the business side and the friendship side aside and call the fight correct.
Anthony, is there a learning curve doing this, or is it sort of just come naturally to you?
I think it comes natural, because I've been doing boxing so long that when I see something, I can assess it or analyze it,
right?
And call it as I see it. And it been a few times that I called something right before it happened, and it was like, how did you know that was going to happen? I mean, because like I said, I've been doing it so long that I see it before it even happens.
Does that make you hungry to get back into the ring, or are you able to completely separate yourself? I mean, you go from fighter to commentator, and those are two completely different things.
Yeah, you have to separate yourself. You can't. I mean, sometimes you put yourself in that position and say what you will do, or say what needs to be done, but you still have to separate yourself. I get a little anxious. Yes, I want to get back in there and fight, but you still have to be professional and call the things right. Call how you see it. Stay comfortable, stay poised, at that time as you doing everything that you do. You stay poised, you stay focused on the task at hand.
Okay, finally, obviously you're not finished with actually boxing. That's clear. What else do you feel you need to accomplish or want to accomplish before you do move a different direction?
I think I accomplished everything. I just want to prove to myself, out of anybody, that I'm a true champion. I was a 2-time world champion. I am a 2-time world champion, and I came back from cancer. My goal once I came back from cancer was to become a world champion. I did that, plus another belt. And my goal was to do that for me and my grandfather. And I did that twice. So I think I've done everything I needed to do. But I still, I'm in love with the game. When you still got it, you still got it. That's basically how it is.
Fantastic. Anthony, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it. As always, the best to you and your family in these difficult times.
Thank you.
All right, it's time for the PBC podcast topic of the week. And the question here is, which era is better? Today's heavyweights or the ones from the turn of the century? Some might call that the Klitschko era. But Mike, why don't we start with an overview of the two periods?
Okay, first of all, I just want to state for the record that neither of those eras are among the very best of all time, just to sort of set the stage for all this. I mean, nothing will ever come close to the golden era with Ali, Frazier, Foreman, and those guys. But the 90s were actually very good, too, when Lennox Lewis was at his peak and Evander Holyfield, Riddick Bowe. That was a good, strong era. So these aren't quite up to those eras, but I think it's an interesting conversation. And also, I just wanted to mention that some heavyweights straddled two eras. So, I mean, that people are probably going to think about that as we do this. Like, for example, Lennox Lewis actually was in the previous, not this era, but the one before that. He actually, a couple of years was actually part of that era. But I'm not really counting him as much because he wasn't really in the thick of it. That was toward the end of his career. Anyway, so that said, I think the current crop of big men are comparable to the previous one. I don't want to sound wishy-washy, but I think almost the same level, basically the same level. In the previous year, we had the Klitschkos, Vladimir and Vitaly. Those guys led the way for more than a decade. I think collectively that those two are better than any two current heavyweights that are active now. Vladimir ruled the division forever. And I've always thought that Vitaly was actually the better fighter. He just had some injuries and he didn't accomplish as much, but I thought he was at least as good and probably better. And I think there was a big drop off after that. Like, who was the next best fighter? Was it Sam Peter or Chris Bird or David Hay? We have other guys on a list that we compiled. These guys had some good moments. For example, Peter gave Vladimir some problems in one fight, but they were far from special fighters. I mean, can you imagine Peter, Bird, or Hay fighting guys like Ali, Frazier, and Foreman? I can't even really.
I can imagine it.
I mean, they could fight them, but I don't think they have much of a chance. Now, real quick, then I'll hand it back to you. Now to this era, the current era. I think Fury, this is my opinion, is probably the best heavyweight of the last two eras. Probably the best heavyweight since Lennox Lewis was at his peak. Although I think Vitaly's close, and he could do things at his size that even Lewis couldn't do. His boxing ability, his ability to move, that is just unbelievably unusual for a guy that size. I think he could have held his own in any era. Joshua has some good skills and a lot of power, which I think would make him a threat to pretty much anyone. What I wonder about him is his toughness that I saw or didn't see in the two Andy Ruiz fights, and that's a long conversation, but I think people get that. And Wilder's power makes him a threat, I think, in almost any fight in any era. Although it didn't help him in the rematch with Fury. With him, I think his skill set is the problem. In other words, if he can't land his big punch, then what can he do? That's the question about Wilder. But obviously, he's one of the big three current guys. And after that, then we're back to the same situation as before. We have Ruiz, Luis Ortiz, Dillian White, Joseph Parker. These guys actually might be a little bit better than the guys second-tier guys of the previous era. I'm not sure. But none of them are really special guy. So that sort of sets the table.
Well, I think that so-called second-tier guys of this era are significantly better than the second-tier guys of the prior era. I'll take Andy Ruiz Jr., Luis Ortiz, Dillian White, Alexander Povetkin, Joseph
Ortiz
Parker.
especially stands out for me.
Yeah, I take him. I take those guys over the Tony Thompsons and the Eddie Chambers and Sam Peters and so forth. John Ruiz, who we forgot, who was a champ for a bit and
multiple times. Yeah.
Multiple times, that's right. And so I like the second tier significantly better than the last era's second tier. That may tip the scales in their favor, if you ask me, overall. Vladimir Klitschko, out of all, when you talk head-to-head, I think that Vitaly Klitschko is probably the toughest style matchup for everybody, any era.
That's a good way
simply
to put it.
Because, yeah, and I think we're in agreement there. I mean, simply because the guy had a great chin, he could box, he could brawl, he had every skill, he was tenacious, and he was a rough customer in there when he needed to be, take a good shot. I mean, you name it, Vitaly had it, and so I think he'd be a real problem for Tyson Fury, who, as it stands right now, is the best heavyweight in this era. In fact, I'd probably, head-to-head, I might lean toward Vitaly beating Tyson Fury. However, Vladimir Klitschko is the best of that era, if you ask me, simply based on his accomplishments. Now, head-to-head, I think he'd struggle with quite a few guys on the list. I think he'd struggle with Deontay Wilder simply because, against Anthony Joshua, when he came back, he was sort of a different fighter. He was more aggressive in that fight. He was also like that against David Haye as well, but he had a tendency to fight off his back foot quite a bit, and with a little bit of a fear, a little bit of hesitancy, and I think that might be his undoing against someone like Deontay Wilder. Obviously, we saw what Tyson Fury did to him. Now, granted, that was Klitschko at a pretty advanced age. However, I think that Fury would have been able to mind screw him at any point during Vladimir's career. And Tyson Fury is 30 years old, so he's still got a few more years left. A lot of these heavyweights matured much later in their careers. Deontay Wilder, 34, 35, but a late starter, so he's still got some years left. Anthony Joshua, 28, 29 or so. He's got some years left. So we don't know how good these guys can be, but if I had to compare the two eras, I think today's era is a little slept on, and I think in general, just like we discussed last week, that's what happens. When the fighters are active, it's kind of hard to see them objectively. But stepping back, I think today's era of heavyweights is better than the so-called Klitschko era.
I can see where I sort of alluded to this before. I can see where the second tier guys are better than arguably better than the previous year's second tier guys. But I think that again, I'm sort of repeating here that collectively, I think the Klitschkos are better than any two of the top guys. So I think on the top end, maybe the previous one was a little bit better, but overall, maybe you could argue that the second one, the current one, was better. Well, I did something fun. Maybe we could just do a quick back and forth to sort of illustrate this. I actually, pitted these guys against each other.
Oh boy!
And I'll just tell you really, and I don't have much on each fight. I'll just tell you really quickly what I think would happen, and then you can give me your thoughts. So the first one I have is Vladimir versus Tyson Fury, but a prime Vladimir versus Tyson Fury. So you stole my thunder. I think we essentially saw what would happen. I think Fury would keep Vlad off balance the entire fight and win a decision.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that Fury just mentally and physically matched up really, really well with Vladimir. I think his size, his dimension, and so forth make Vladimir hesitant. And then, of course, the back and forth, it certainly played a factor to me anyway. And that was Fury, a young Fury against an older, experienced Vladimir. So I could only imagine it'd be that much worse with a lesser experienced Vladimir.
Right. Okay. So Vladimir versus Joshua. Basically, an old Vladimir almost beat Joshua. So I think a younger version of Vlad would outbox him and ultimately stop Joshua late in the fight.
I'm with you on that as well. I think that at some point he detonates that right hand, maybe that left hook. He had a pretty good left hook as well when he threw it somewhere on Joshua's chin, and it's nighty-night after that.
So we actually had a similar take on Vladimir versus Deontay Wilder. I think this is a bad style matchup for Vlad. He was you said it was fear. I just think that was his style. It became his style. He was a master at fighting from distance. He was a better athlete than people gave him credit for. He had real good footwork, and he was able to move in and out. He wanted to be at the distance that he wanted to be at. It was kind of a safe distance, but that's what he chose to do. But that would allow Wilder, I think, the room he needs to land his right hand. Which is, when you crowd him like Fury did, then he can't. Then he doesn't have room, and it's difficult for him. But I don't think Vladimir would have done that. I'm inclined to say that Vlad would win a decision, but it's almost 50-50 for me. I wouldn't be surprised if Wilder got him and stopped him.
Yeah, I think Wilder does get him. Again, the two times where I saw Vladimir really come out and be aggressive was against David Haye. And he came out sort of that way against Anthony Joshua as well. He had a lot of time to think, and he was out of the ring for 17-18 months prior to fighting Joshua. I think a prime Vladimir Klitschko against Deontay Wilder, Klitschko may be more skilled, but I feel that Wilder's power would make him hesitant. He would fight off his back foot, as he typically did during that period of his prime, and that would allow for Wilder to land his own right hand, and I don't know if Klitschko's chin could take that.
Would have liked to have seen that.
Sure.
Vitaly versus Fury. So I think, like as you said, I think that's Fury's toughest fight among all these guys. Vitaly was big. He knew how to box. He was tough as nails. He had power. He had a crazy knockout percentage, which people maybe forget. I think he demonstrated all that against Lennox. He gave Lennox Lewis hell in their fight, and he lost because of that horrible, horrible cut. If you haven't seen it, that's one of the worst cuts ever. But he sort of proved in that fight, what he was made of. I think Fury's movement would give Vitaly some problems, like it would give anybody problems. But the fight would be very, very competitive. I would pick Fury by a close decision, but really close decision that could go either way.
I like Vitaly in that fight. I just think I like Vitaly. I think it's even possible that he could stop Tyson Fury.
Yeah.
He wasn't the most fleet of foot, but he was a thinker in there. He had a great jab. He was tenacious. He had a good chin. I think that he would walk through some of Fury's shots. He almost walked through Lennox Lewis's shots. You mentioned the cut, and granted that was from Lennox's punches, and Lennox did punish him quite a bit in that fight, particularly in the last 2-3 rounds or so. But he took it. And he was ready to go even as the fight was stopped. Obviously, Tyson Fury doesn't have anywhere near the power of Lennox Lewis, and I don't think he has anything to keep Vitaly off of him. So I like Vitaly Klitschko to win a close but clear decision, or possibly even pull off a late round stoppage.
Yeah, you know what? As we're talking, I'm starting to think more and more maybe Vitaly's the best one of all these guys, but I'll stick with Fury. That's the one that I came in with. I'm going to stick with my guy. I just always had a lot of respect for both. Ended up with a lot of respect for both of the Klitschko brothers.
And I rate Vladimir higher than Vitaly simply because of how how long he reigned.
He accomplished so much.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. But I think head to head, Vitaly probably would have beaten Vladimir if the two brothers ever fought.
Yeah. Okay, so Vitaly versus Joshua. Horrible matchup for Joshua. I think Vitaly just would eat him alive. Just fair. Too good, too strong, too tough. I think he stops him.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. That's bad matchup for AJ. I think Vitaly walks through him in about 4 or 5 rounds.
Vitaly versus Wilder. I think that's a bad matchup for Deontay. Vitaly would be in Wilder's face like Fury was, but bigger, well, not taller, but wider, stronger guy than Fury. I think that he wouldn't be able to get any shots off, and he would just get broken down.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that in that fight, Deontay would definitely have to step up his inside game to handle what Vitaly Klitschko would bring, and I could see not one shot taking him out or anything like that, but I could see it getting pretty brutal in there if he's unable to answer in close quarters, because that fight is not going to be fought at a distance.
Right. That's interesting stuff. And to summarize, then I think maybe you're right. I think if you consider the second-tier guys, maybe this is a little bit of a deeper era of quality guys than the previous one. But I think maybe at the top end, the previous one was a little bit better. So I think in the end, maybe it's comparable in that way. But yeah, maybe I'd lean toward the current one also.
Yeah, and there's still time, to see how this whole thing shakes out. And who knows, maybe an Alexander Usyk comes running through the whole division like Evander Holyfield in the early 90s. But, there's certainly a lot of time for these guys to continue and to improve and so forth. But good stuff. Definitely some good stuff. Kind of made me miss some of the old days with Sam Peter. Remember James Toney at heavyweight? I know it was only like 2 fights, but that wasn't too shabby either. He might have been. Yeah, he was pretty small. I don't know if he would have been competitive.
Well, physically wasn't small. Naturally, he was small. Physically, he was an big, out of shape guy. But the skill, he might be the most skillful guy of our lifetimes. I mean, maybe that's a different conversation. But he was just an unbelievably skilled guy. But he was a natural middleweight.
Yeah. Scary. He would have been really fun in this era. Any heavyweight era really would have been, and definitely one of the most skilled. It would have made for fun fights. I don't know if he would have beat the 6'6", 6'7", 6'9" guys, but certainly would have been fun watching him try. Now it is time for our second interview today, and it's going to be a good one. One of the biggest fighters, literally, in the sport of boxing today, someone who we were just discussing, the former WBC World Heavyweight Champion, Deontay Wilder. All right, Deontay, first things first, how are you and everyone in your family doing during this time of crisis?
We're doing just like any other family, just trying to get through these hard times, staying clean, practicing social distancing, making sure we are washing our hands at least 20 seconds each time. Just being able to still have a natural, normal life, but still be able to follow the different instructions that's been provided for us all to try to defeat this thing and overcome it. We are overcoming it. We just trying to be that family that pay attention to a lot of things. Because I've had a couple of people I know that family members have gotten it and been in hospitals and stuff. So this is very serious. This is a time it's crazy times. But my family is doing great.
That's good to hear. Now, are you in Alabama right now?
Yes, I'm in Alabama right now. Came back down here. I got a lot of little different things going on here, projects I'm doing and stuff. And it's not a big city, so it's not around a lot of things, and it's not too strict where I am and where I live. So everything is good. I think this is the perfect place that me and my family could be at this point in time.
Deontay, suddenly everybody's got a lot of extra time, it seems. What do you do to keep yourself busy?
Well, for me, I've been big into meditation. I've always said about meditating. Using visualization. So, I live on a beautiful island here in Alabama, and everything I have and need, I'm right here, surrounded by water, the nature, different little things that I love and enjoy. The scenery, and I'm a type of person that I'm a homebody. I'm a homebody at heart. I'm always at home. No matter what home that I'm in or what state, I'm always at home. And so during these times, this is me and my assistant, me and my brothers, we always talk. And we were like, a lot of people are sitting there, they're bored and, going crazy during this time. But these times, this is what we do all the time. We love just, being amongst each other, amongst nature, and just sitting around thinking about different things for the future and just game planning. That's just all I do. So I'm very relaxed. I'm very comfortable, and life hasn't changed for me. I'm very thankful for that.
Now, my understanding is you recently had surgery on your biceps. Can you tell us when and how that injury occurred and how recovery is going?
Yeah, recovery is going well. I'm in therapy. I ended up injuring it during my last fight. Somewhere up in there, but everything is going great with it. That's another thing. I'm just focusing on recovery, getting myself back to full health, and getting ready to hopefully this corona stuff will be out the way and we can get back to camp and get ready to go again sometime at the end of the year.
Now, has it affected you? You mentioned physical therapy. Has it affected you working out in any way?
Oh yeah, I can't. I mean, I can't work out right now. That's what I'm looking forward to. Once I get healed with my arm, I'm looking forward to just working out, being able to do the things that I love to do. Right now, I just been sitting back and getting taken care of, which that's not a bad position either. Now, getting taken care of. Everything, all my meals been prepared special for me and brought to me. Just a lot of catering right now.
Oh, wow.
Between my fiance and all the kids that I got around me. It's been a beautiful, man. I mean, like I said, man, it's nothing I can complain about at this moment in time. I know we all in the world is going through something together. And I think this is the first time that us as a whole, as a world, is going through the same things. And, it's we all have to survive. And I love being around my loved ones, being able to get through the tough times.
Deontay, let's talk boxing a little bit. You've had more time to reflect on what happened against Fury in your last fight. Any more thoughts on what went wrong tactically or in training camp, that kind of thing?
No, my training, everything that happened, it happened the last 15 minutes into the fight. There's a lot of things that went on, It's a lot of things that I don't even want to talk about at this moment in time. I'm still reflecting on certain things, and I can't believe the things that happened. It happened to me, and it happened to me at that point in time in my career. Maybe I'll come out with some things later on, as things unfold, as I get into camp and stuff like that. But certain things I don't want to talk about at this moment in time. I'm still reflecting on it and trying to figure some things out.
Are you referring to tactical things? I'm wondering, like after the opening bell sounded, were there things you're saying to yourself now, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that, or I should have done this, that kind of thing?
No, not at all. Even with the first of the bell, the thing about it that it's easy to understand, what type of person Deontay Wilder was in that moment in time. Even when I took off my mask and the things that I was doing, I've been in this sport for a very long time. People have seen me fight, all over the world for a very long time. So people automatically knows, how I am and, how I should look. And people that know boxing know that wasn't Deontay Wilder that night. I was a zombie that night. It was something, like I said, I can't talk about a lot of things, but it wasn't Deontay Wilder tonight. You can tell from the mask, from my reaction to certain things that I was doing in the ring. You can look from the first fight into the second fight, and you can tell it was two different people, that night. From a guy that, from the first start of the bell, was in retrieve mode, to the first fight, when the first start of the bell, a guy was on the hunt. You don't go backwards. You go forward. And that night, I wasn't myself. I felt like a zombie in there. There's a lot of things I can't say. You know what I'm saying? A lot of things. Okay. I'm just sitting back, and but we only can get stronger. Learn from a lot of situations. We learn from this situation and get better and better. It's not over. In my eyes, I don't see Fury as a champion. It's still going. He ain't the champion yet. We still got one more fight left. And at the end of the day, I'm happy. My family's happy. I'm recovering, and I'm looking forward to giving the world the best of Deontay Wilder.
You sort of answered my next question. After the fact, how difficult was it to put the loss behind you and turn the page? It sounds like you did that pretty quickly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you got to understand that, in life comes many ways. In life, many people lose more than they win. And the thing about losing, some people don't know how to bounce back off a loss in life. That's why when people win all the time, people always want to see a person lose. Not so much because they win all the time, but I look at it as a point. They want to see how that person get up. How do you get off the ground from losing and different things? Because, I told people, I may have lost in the ring, but I'm winning in life. You know what I'm saying? It's two different things. But, I take this time and, to sit back and make myself even hungrier. You know, sometimes you can be in a position and you can do something for so long period of time where you get used to certain things, you get comfortable with certain things. You know, you still have that hunger, but it ain't the same as when you first got into it, trying to get into the rankings and then trying to be a hot prospect and then go on to be fight for a world title and then become a champion. You know, it allowed that hunger to come back to where for where I started to when I gained the title. So there's been a lot of different things, you know. I'm never down about losing because, you know, it only makes me strong to come back and to overcome and conquer. I know this is going to be the biggest moment in time in my life, you know, coming back around again. And boxing is amazing. You know, I can look back and say I was a part of it that made it what it is now. So exciting, especially the heavyweight division. It's just booming. And I'm not done yet.
Were you surprised at how aggressive Fury was in the rematch?
No, I wasn't surprised. That I mean, I couldn't really. It's hard to explain. Like the first sound of the bell is like I was more in retreat mode. It's like I wasn't even there for real. Like I don't know how to say it without. It was just I wasn't there.
Gotcha. That's
all I can tell you. I wasn't there from the first start. I wasn't there. Yeah. You know, my whole body, everything. You know, but it's gonna be all right. Everything's gonna be all right. Trust me. You know, and I'm just looking forward to coming back in there and doing what I got to do. I don't want to say too much. I don't want to feel like I'm making any excuses or anything like that. I just want the people to know that I'm happy, I'm in full health, and I'm coming back stronger than ever.
The third fight with Fury has been pushed back, you said, toward the end of the year. Do you think that extra time helps you to prepare?
Yeah, but it helps me to rest as well. You know, I was going back to back and fighting, you know, kill after kill after killer. You know, I don't think it was anyone that was on the course that I was fighting on to get to where I am now. So, you know, I'm gonna take this time, and it's been good though. You know, I'm gonna take the time. I am taking the time to just sit back and enjoy family and rest. You know, I got an opportunity to really just enjoy my kids. You know, like I said, I just been going and stop. You know, I get in camp, I'm out 3 months, but by doing that 3 months of time, I'm still, you know, working. I'm flying here, I'm doing different things, you know, and then by the time you get back home, by the time you get back in the camp, now you got to get away from your kids. And so at this point in time, I'm just loving the space. I'm just loving the unity that I'm having with my kids and just watching the babies grow and just loving on all of them at this moment in time until it's time to separate myself from them again. And then Daddy had to go to work.
You mentioned the surgery earlier. I'm assuming that you'll use this time also to recover from that. Have you been given a date when you'll be able to resume working out?
I gave a date sometime at the end of May, sometime at the middle to end of May, that I'll be able to get back to working out, sparring, different things of that nature.
Deontay, a lot of trainers have been offering you advice through the media. Have you considered adding any extra voices to your team or listening to what those guys have been saying?
Yeah, we've been having a lot of people reach out and different things and whatnot, you know. But you just have to be careful with that because a lot of people just see this time and they just want publicity.
Yeah.
They want to be able to say they was the name that, you know, they was the name that came in and stuff like that. And just look at it in just a different way. That's how I'm looking at it, and that's how I know boxing. Boxing is very crooked. It's a dirty business. You know, you got to make sure you be careful. It's a corrupt sport as well, very. And you know, people, you got to be careful about the people that you bring around. What the intent of that person is trying to come in and help, especially when they never reached out before and want to see an opportunity. You know, I've seen so much. I've been around so much. I've had people tell me things and tell me not to go do this or say this, and then they turn around and do the same shit they told me not to do. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of stuff going on in boxing. It's just, who can you trust? But I am looking to bring someone in for sure. We don't have We don't have it down yet, but I'm definitely gonna bring. I got 2 people I'm bringing in. You know, one of them he always come to camp on some basis or whatever. He always around, in and out anyway. But we'll see what happens. I think we got a great team that's going to be formed, getting ready. Once everything go back to normal, hopefully it'll be sooner than later, and I can get my team in order, and we can move forward with our game plan for the third fight.
Now, George Foreman says you guys had a pretty good conversation recently. Can you share what you guys spoke about?
Yeah, man, George. It was good talking to George. George is one of the guys that's been trying to get in touch for a good little bit, but you be moving so much, and everybody have a schedule and stuff. And but during this time, everything is shut down. So it's always good to have great conversations at this moment in time. And we had a great conversation. It was a real good conversation. We talked about a lot of things that went on in his career, good and bad, a lot of, different tricks and trades that used to happen, and certain things that he saw in this fight, and a lot of knowledge that he applied to me. And he was telling me how he wanted to show me some methods of strengthening certain parts of my body and stuff like that. So, but he definitely dropped a couple of gems down for me, and it was good to see him. I think I'm gonna once everything clears up or whatever, I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna come out and go see George and see him face to face, spend some time with him, and just intake some of that good old knowledge that he have up there.
That's great.
Deontay, Fury said that he was surprised you want to fight a third time. Do you have any reaction to that?
No, I don't have no reaction. No one should be surprised. I am who I am. I'm Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder, and nothing's going to change about that. Why wouldn't I not want it? Like I said, at this moment in time, we're just sitting back. There's going to be a time and place where I'm ready to come out. It's going to be a time and place where I say what I need to say, But looking at the fight, he know that wasn't me. I know that wasn't me, and the people in the boxing, everyone know that wasn't the real Deontay Wilder. Something was wrong with him, and we'll show. Like I said, it's a time and place for it all, and I'll reveal a lot of things, But I'm looking forward to it. Actually, I'm looking forward to it, and I can't wait to get the people what they want to see.
As you start preparing for the third fight, I guess mentally, emotionally, what's your mindset? Are you angry? Are you just motivated? Is it just business as usual? Want to prove people wrong, or all of the above?
I mean, it's all of the above. It's more fuel to the fire. As I look at it as well, this is set up for, the third will even set up even bigger. So this is going to be it right here. This is the last final straw right here, as I see it. And it's all the above. I'm channeling everything in that happened, everything that happened towards me. I'm cutting my grass, getting rid of all the snakes in the grass. It's a lot of things. This time just allowed me to look back and just to really dig in the weed and see what was going on. You know what I'm saying? You can have a lot of great people around you, but certain jealousy of people you just can't control. You get to a certain level and you think people are happy with you, but everybody wants certain things. Everybody wants what you have, but they don't want to work as hard as you or sacrifice as much as you. So, people get envy of the things that they can't have. And it's one of the things I had to weed out and had to change up some certain things. But it's going to be good, man. I can't wait. I think he should look forward to it. Don't worry about if I want it or not. Just look forward to seeing me there when it's time.
I've followed a lot of fighters have gone through similar ups and downs. It's a hell of a journey, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, people don't understand. Boxing is a business like none other. It's a sport that you gotta be able to trust people, and that's the hard part. You know, being able to trust people that's around you. You know, you can get some people that'll be around you for years and never show signs of anything until that moment that they, you know, get offered something or someone come along and try to do. I mean, so many different ways, just like it's so many different ways to make money in boxing. You know, boxing is one of these sports where, you know, we do as we do, you know, free. That's why I say the things I say and I speak how I speak, you know, because I understand how cruel this sport is. You know what I mean? I mean, look at this sport. You know, if you don't make it in boxing and you spend your whole years of career devoting you and putting in everything you got in the boxing, if you don't make it, then you stuck. After this, we don't have retirement plans. We don't have, you know, 401ks that they set up for us and different things. It's like in boxing, either you make it or you don't. And you don't make it, then you just straight fucked. Basic, plain and simple. You know, so with that being said, it just, when you're dealing with money, money is the root of all evil. And a lot of evil shit goes on in boxing. It's a lot of things that I had to see for my own self, a lot of things that I experienced that very night for myself, you know, which is still something that has scratched my head. We try to put together, but, you know.
Deontay, in closing, do you have anything you'd like to say to your fans?
To all my fans, first off, I just want to tell you guys, especially my day ones, that I love you so much. You know, thank you for the love and the support. Thank you for the support that you've been giving me during these times. You know, I know I'm a king. I know I'm a great king. I know I'm a great leader. I've led y'all so far. I know I'm an inspiration to so many. I know I motivate so many. And just want to tell you guys that I'm still here. I'm not going nowhere. We're not going nowhere at all. Like I said before, we may have lost on that night in the ring, but we're winning in life. And that's where it counts. Most of all, I'll be back. I'll be back stronger than ever. And when I come back, baby, you'll see us regain what we regain our title and become two-time champion, and we'll continue with regular programming. Until then, I just want you guys to stay safe during these times. We're together on this. This is a fight. This is a championship fight that the world is in. So we got to train hard. We got to do the right things. You know, take cautions and the correct protocol to get through this so we can get to this fight. We got to get through this to get to where we got to go. Again, I love you. Thank you for the support. Till next time. God bless, baby.
I can think of no better way to end it. Deontay, you and your family stay safe. Thanks a lot.
Thank you guys so much, and you guys be safe as well.
You too. Thanks, Deontay.
Peace.
Well, that concludes another episode of the PBC podcast. Now, as a reminder, you can always find our show on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, any platform where you can find podcasts, you can find ours pretty much. We're also on the Premier Boxing Champions website. Speaking of the website, be sure to check out the latest content on there and on PBC social media platforms. This week alone, we've got Keith Thurman, Leo Santa Cruz, David Benavidez, Gervonta Tank Davis, and Andre Berto all making appearances, plus a replay of Santa Cruz versus Abner Mares, the rematch. That's Saturday night on PBC's YouTube page. And we want to thank our guests, Anthony Dirrell and Deontay Wilder, for joining us. And of course, as always, we want to thank our listeners. Be sure to check us out next week for more boxing talk right here on the PBC podcast.